Calgary Stampede is one of the best rodeos in the world. It's also a great summer fair with many attractions for visitors, including balloon racing. Sponsors pay Harold's company to get their names up in the air to be seen by the crowds.
When I go out and I fly, I think there's a sense of adventure. Seeing your ideas float and people look up and smile at them and being amused is probably the same feeling that an artist would have when he creates something.
We moved from fairly conventional round balloons to having the Coke cans and a cowboy hat in that film, and we had cows, dinosaurs, shopping carts. That cow's earnings was as high as some professional hockey players.
When the weather's good, Harold's balloons fly and the sponsors pay for the advertising. But when the bad weather makes balloon flying impossible, Harold loses money. Today, Harold gets the news another balloon race is canceled.
That's only $5,000.
In 2003, the project that failed was a disaster. I had to sell off some of my personal property. I had to refinance. I got taken down to the knees, we'll say. It was very tough to get through, but it defined the next 9 years. I'm sure Mike Tyson took one on the nose once. It's how he learned how to fight. I'm not suggesting I'm Mike Tyson, but what I'm trying to say is that you have to get hurt if you want to know how to succeed. It was actually when we still had the balloons that I started working with inflatable shelters. It was a customer of mine that said, Harold, the balloons are wonderful. They attract so much attention, but when the wind blows, you can't fly. When it's raining, you can't fly. If it's snowing, you can't fly. So we made this shelter that was a hospitality center. Suddenly it started to go and we started realizing we had something. Then, when we sold the balloons, it was because we saw that this air shelter business was more sustainable. The strength of our air shelters, no doubt, came from the weakness and limitations of our balloons. It's now the wind and the rain which are our bragging points. You give us the nasty weather, we're there. That's really funny because we've gone to the other end of the weather spectrum. People will think of them as tents, but instead of having wooden poles or aluminum frames or whatever, have air-filled columns, which are the trusses, the frame of the shelter. And then those structures are used, because just pumping air into them puts them up very, very fast. They're extremely portable because 90% of our mass is in fact air and we use the local supply. They are also resilient. You can hit them with a variety of forces and they will move a little bit, and that's very, very necessary for us in a blast environment.
But you need an anchor point here because you've got to pull the width of the structure. This one is going to have the least amount.
The best ideas that I ever got came as a result of questions asked of me. Do you think you could? And so you start digging that out. But I've never sat there and cultivated an idea, just spawned it on my own. It was always as a response. And so interacting, people ask us who designed our shelters, who created the blast resistance. The right answer is always our customer. They said, can you? Without that question, we wouldn't have. This is the Bud Light Lounge. This lounge travels to sporting events all over North America, about 75 of them a year. This structure here, this is actually two structures hooked together. One is an isolation system, the other one is a place where the beds are. This is for portable hospitals. This structure is used in Texas in post-tornado type events. And this 50-bed hospital is set up by a trained team from the back of the truck to installed ready for patients in 1 hour and 20 minutes. I had a project in Newfoundland, and in reality it was not a great project. I turned it down. I said, I can't do this. I don't have enough people. I can't build this. And I met the Minister of Industry for Newfoundland, and she said to me, if you're interested in trying to set this up, trying to train people here, we'll assist you. And we did it. Ultimately, we set up a factory there. We have a little bit less than 100 people working in total. We have a profit sharing program. We have people who are paid pretty well, but we have people who are very, very committed to our job, not to our factory, not just to making a living. I think we have been able to build a better, more committed workforce by being somewhere other than the heartland of manufacturing. We're not where everybody is in manufacturing. We are where people needed jobs. When I went into Grand Bank, they had an unemployment rate of 48.5%. They were going through the worst of their fishing crisis, and there were people who, when I was in town, would would be hanging on the fence of our factory. And I said to the secretary, what's this? And she said, they're just trying to make eye contact with you. They want a shot to say, are you hiring? And they'll hang there for 3-4 hours waiting for you. And it was moving. It was powerful. So, you know, it's not perfect. I have challenges with the logistics, but I have people who have learnt our craft, who have invested of themselves in it, and who want to develop that skill further. And that's, you know, I know it's a long ways outside the box, but I can defend it over and over and over again. It feels good to have a company that's sustaining itself well and that's earning money, but more importantly, I think being outside the box, establishing a factory in a fishing village, I think creating products that actually make people safer. Every job, whether it was flying balloons or making inflatable shelters, that's all come from our innovation and our own spawning, and I think, to me, that's the most important thing. It will rank 10 rungs on the ladder above the balance sheet. When you get a vision of something, you're going to find many, many people with reasons that it's not going to work. At our very, very first blast test, we were on a military site, and we had set up our shelter, and the man who's doing the detonation gives the countdown. He says 5 minutes. And just next to me, a man says to me, he said, so what are you hoping for, Harold? And I said, well, I'd like some damage. He said, pardon me? I said, well, I obviously want the structure to survive this, but I want some damage because I won't learn anything unless we have some damage. And he raised his voice. There was about 70 people on the hill to watch this explosion. And he raised his voice so that everybody he could hear him, and he said, there will be damage. He said, the explosion we're about to set off here will take off all 4 doors off a personnel carrier. He said, it's a cute idea, Harold, but what you ever find of this again, you're not going to recognize. And the detonation, I sort of fell to the ground, grabbed the binoculars, put a hoodie over my head so that I didn't have to ask, and I thought, oh, Harold, you've gone too far this time. And the detonation went, and there was only one thing that we couldn't find after that explosion: him. It was wonderful. In our testing, when we're doing the blast testing and everything else, we want to break things. We want the structure to stay up, but we want something to break, because our philosophy is the only way you learn to make anything good is to see it broken.